We're millionaires. They just haven't paid us yet.
I would be crazy not to talk to you about daily routines, time management, productivity.
I'm playing the long game. How do I make it 10% better? This shit matters, man. How do I make it better?
You're getting all of these no's. What's going through your mind to keep pushing forward?
I had no connections. I had nothing. I got rejected, and then I got a deal. And I'm gonna tell you why this is important, and you're gonna freak out.
That was a different level. We almost melted you before you even got on the show. That was, I got to say, maybe the hottest sauna session that we've ever done. Because normally we start cold and then we warm up. That was a different level.
Do you guys keep an attorney at your house? Because I mean, it was so hot. You could get sued for that.
Well, now, no, the Jesse came to the house and he's like, listen, you need a pool gate here. You need a fire extinguisher here. These guys up on the ladder. So no, I'm just going to keep you around.
I've been a dad for 15 years, so I'm looking at houses differently than some of your guests.
What is your...
By the way, you guys need a fire extinguisher by your sauna too, immediately.
Do you actually?
Yes.
No, he was leaving. He's like, listen, put the fire extinguisher.
I'm going to put a checklist together for you guys.
Yeah.
I also want to switch my sauna because of Jesse to wood burning sauna instead of an electric. What's your sauna protocol? If someone's listening, what's your ice bath sauna Jesse Itzler protocol?
So it's a big part of my life because I love the way that it makes me feel. But I like to go in the sauna first for like 20 minutes, and then I'll go in the cold plunge for like 2 minutes. Half of you, Lauren, half of you, you're a 4-minute person. And then I'll do that like 2 or 3 times. And that's usually about a 45-minute session total.
You are so productive. Like that's how I would describe you as a person. What things do you do on a daily basis that support you being this productive?
Well, I don't dilly-dally anymore. So I have 4 children. I have businesses. My wife has her business. Obviously, she had Spanx for 20 plus years. So as you get older and you evolve, your life system has to evolve. So like when I first started out in business, I was working 20-hour day. I was eating dinner at 11 o'clock and now I eat dinner at 5:30. So you have to change your day-to-day system as you evolve. So my life looks way different at 55 than it looked when I was 37. So and for me, it's really important that I do things every day that I love to do. I have to check the Jesse box because if I don't do that and someone takes that away from me, if my wife says, you can't run right now, we have to do this, or I'm going to resent her, I'm going to resent my boss or my team or whatever. So I really prioritize me every day and make sure that I do a couple of things that I like every day. And sauna and cold plunging is one, playing with my kids, all those things are really important to me. So I make sure that I do that every day.
It's interesting. We have so many high performers, including yourself, on the show. And I always, what we try to do is we try to extrapolate the information for the audience to, apply that, tactic or advice to their own life. But as you were just talking and as we were talking in the sauna, I was thinking like, you're so right about iterating your life as you go on. And I think about how I used to operate in my early 20s until even like my, early 30s before I had children when we were first starting out. And compared to how I operate now. And I'm still like, I think we're still really in it. We're still young, but I'd be lying if I said it's the same kind of grind that it was when I was in my early 20s. And so I think what's interesting when you talk is people will listen to someone like yourself on stage, or they'll listen to you talk on a podcast like this and like, oh, I'm going to do what Jesse does. But I wonder when you're giving advice to say that 25-year-old Jesse, would you change the way you operated then and say to operate the way you do now? Or would you do what you did at that point? Do you get what I'm saying?
I think the greatest gift I gave to myself in my 20s is that I lived my 20s like I was 20. A lot of my friends lost their 20s chasing, work or trying to get promoted or whatever. And, you're 20, you're going to make you'll make 10 times as much money, and not everybody, but most people listening, in their 40s and 50s than they will in their 20s and 30s, because you're going to learn from your mistakes. You're going to have a bigger network. You're going to be better at whatever it is you're doing. You're going to be really good. You might not be really good you'll be really good in your 30s and 40s. You can monetize it then. So I'm really glad that I got to try different things in my 20s and figure out like, what am I good at? What do I like to do? What am I passionate about? What don't I like to do? What am I not good at? So when I look back on it, look, it worked out pretty well for me, but that was the best gift that I gave to myself. Like, I didn't worry about the fact that other people were on Wall Street making a lot more money than me. And I was sleeping on my friends' couches trying to figure out like businesses that were failing. Like, how do I make that work? Because at the end of the day, I'm playing the long game. And I wasn't worried about, oh, so-and-so is making this or doing this, and I'm only here. It's easy to compare. You never win when you compare yourself to someone else. There's always going to be someone better or making more money. So I never had that. I was really like comfortable. I think if you're in your 20s, it's really important to believe in the end of your story. Like, you have to believe he or she's out there. You have to believe that, you're going to be a millionaire. Like, so I used to walk into my office. Like, my journey was really interesting. I had a very unconventional journey as an entrepreneur. And between the ages of 18 to 22, I slept on like 18 different couches. My friends, I wasn't like homeless, but my friends were putting me up couch to couch to couch. And I remember walking into my office at like 20 and turning to my partner and saying to him, like, we're millionaires. They just haven't paid us yet. And like, I believed that. I knew that was coming for me. And I think that conviction is really important early on in your journey. Like, how you talk to yourself in your 20s creates an environment of what you will become in your 30s and 40s. I really believe that.
Who taught you to think like that? You mentioned, we were talking, before when we got out of the sauna, your father. Was it your dad that taught you that? Was it a friend? Like, that young, how did you start thinking like that?
Well, it's interesting because my father owned a plumbing supply house, and we never talked about money. I mean, he definitely breathed a lot of confidence and self-esteem and love into me, which is amazing. But like, we never talked about money. I didn't know anything. Like, I never met like my first real millionaire I met. I was like 22 years old. I couldn't believe I knew someone that was a millionaire. I'm like, Steve Starker is a millionaire. I'm like, come rub your elbow next to me, man. I need some of that. My dad didn't give me like business lessons, but he gave me a lot of, you can, try everything, wisdom, and like, it's okay to fail and those kind of messages. And that was important to me. But I don't know, like, I think that everybody is born with a baseline of grit. They say that grit's like the number one indicator of future success. If we all raise grittier kids, there's a better chance they'd be successful. And when you do things that are challenging, you take your baseline up. Even just what we just did in the sauna, as crazy as it sounds, we all wanted to get out, but we all stayed in.
Well, I wanted to get out. That sauna was intense, but yeah.
I was okay. I'm just kidding.
No, but like, when you do those things, you take your baseline up and it never goes back down. So I was always doing those kind of things, getting out of my comfort zone early.
Yeah, I think this is like, I haven't articulated this well on the show, but I think, this is the last time I had a job was McDonald's when I was in high school. And ever since then, I've worked for myself in some form or another. And what I try to point out to maybe people that are not as far along on the entrepreneurial path, and you're much further than me, is that I've had so many punches in the nose in these last 16, 17 years that grit has just slowly been built over time. And what I try to tell people is like, that's to me what those early years are for, is like, take the punches, learn from your mistakes, have some tenacity, build the grit, keep going. But where I used to get in so much trouble is I felt at a young age, like I had to have it all at that point. And looking back, I wish I would have enjoyed a little bit more in that quote unquote 20s than, putting so much pressure on myself, because I don't think, to your point, you need to get some of that experience and some of that grit before you can even start really being taken seriously as an entrepreneur. Does that make sense? Like,
oh, definitely.
Like if I met a guy like you and you're like, hey, I'm 22 years old and I'm ready to go, like, hey, that's good, but you need more repetitions, and still so. And so I think what I try to point out to people now is that you have so much time. And if you can enjoy yourself a little bit more, figuring out who you are in that 20 to 30 year period, I just think it's invaluable.
You actually just reminded me something I never thought about in my life ever. And it just came to me, is like thinking about my dad and like, what you asked a good question, like, what was it? And, my dad was really comfortable being embarrassed. He was goofy. He was a goofy guy. Like, he would wear stuff that didn't fit in my town. And he was like, he didn't care. And he taught myself, my brother, and my two sisters that it's okay to be embarrassed. And I'll tell you, man, once you get over the fear of being embarrassed, it's so liberating. it's so ridiculously liberating. And I think that's really the difference maker for me. That like I was okay getting thrown out of offices. I got thrown out of offices all the time. I was okay with the word no, and it didn't stop me from going until I got a yes. And that's been a theme in my life. My book got rejected by 14 publishers till number 15 gave me a chance. Every record company threw me out until like number 21, Delicious Vinyl, signed me. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I think that comes from my dad and my mom just being like, it's okay if you get embarrassed or kicked down. And I think that's where it came from.
Tell us a story of when you were kicked out of a building. Like, what do you mean? You got to give us a detail on that.
I mean, it's happened early in my journey. I was selling carrot and celery sticks door to door in New York City.
Amazing.
Yeah. I was like, people like are too, they don't have time. This is like before Uber Eats. They don't have time to go out and get lunch. Like, I like carrot and celery sticks. Everybody probably likes carrot and celery sticks. I'm going to be the carrot and celery king. So I went to the Korean deli. I got all these different, I got all these carrots, and I showed up at these offices and started selling them, door to door, knocking on the door. That lasted a day. Then I sold T-shirts at Giant Stadium that I made up. I'm still banned from Giant Stadium.
No way.
I was selling them illegally in the parking lot. I got thrown out of that.
Still to this day, you can't go there.
I mean, I'm sure I look different, but I'm sure I'm on a list. And even as I got older at Marquis Jet, when I had this, which was a company that my partner and I started, when we had our first meeting at NetJets, which is the company that we ended up partnering with, our meeting went 12 minutes. They had 650 airplanes, private jets, and we wanted to use that fleet to create a company to sell a private jet card. They were the only game in town. They say no, there's no business. So we had to get a yes. And we got a meeting with the CEO, and 11 minutes into the meeting, I was 28 years old. He literally looked at my partner and I, and he said, if you think I'm giving two 28-year-old kids who probably didn't break 1,000 on their SAT, which I got a 980 on my SAT, so it pissed me off. He's like, there's no chance. And he threw us out. And we ended up getting a follow-up meeting, and ultimately at that meeting convinced him that our idea was valid. And that company went on to do $5 billion in sales.
And for the audience, if they don't know what that is, can you explain what kind of card you created?
Yeah. So our idea was, could we make flying private more accessible and affordable to a bigger audience? So we created a 25-hour debit card. So basically, it would be like you owned your own plane. Your plane would be ready on 6-hour notice anywhere in the country. You would prepay for 25 hours. So let's say you paid $100,000. You get 25 flight hours. And if you flew from Austin to Atlanta and it was a 2-hour flight, you'd have 23 hours left. So you had all the benefits of owning your own airplane without having to own it. And then when the card was expired and you were out of hours, you could just buy another card. So you didn't have to buy a plane, no pilots. We did all that.
And the benefit to the person who owns that plane is they get to offset some of their costs by people booking time when they're not using it, right?
No, the benefit of it was that they literally had, it was like they owned their own private jet without having to own it.
No, but I'm saying for the owner of that plane, they got to offset some of the costs that they would have to operate the plane, and then
it was much cheaper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're coming,
it worked, by the way.
No, yeah. When you're coming up and you're getting all of these no's, what's going through your mind to keep pushing forward? Because I think a lot of people, a lot of people have a fear of just getting started in the first place. To your point, maybe it's fear of rejection, or they don't want to be embarrassed, or they don't, they're just, they're worried about what that says about them as a person. But as you're getting the no's, how are you motivating yourself to keep going? Because I think that's also important to talk about.
Yeah, I think, well, just to take one step back, there's an art to saying no. Now, no is so important to us. We're busy. We have kids. We can't say yes to everything. So if you invite me out to dinner on Thursday night, first of all, I don't need to give you a reason why I can't go. A lot of people think they come up with an excuse like, Michael, thank you so much. I just can't make it on Thursday. You guys, you and a bunch of guys go out to dinner. Now, when you're at dinner, I'm having fun at my house. I'm playing, I'm going out on a date with Sarah, whatever I'm doing. I just call the host at the restaurant and say, hey, my friend Michael's there. I want to buy them dessert and send them a note saying, hey guys, wish I could be there. Thinking of you guys. I'll get the next one. Dessert's on me. drinks are on me, the meal's on me. And now everyone there is like, oh my God, this guy's not even here and he's thinking of us. Like I'm now the star. I turned a no into the star of the dinner. So there's an art to saying no, and I don't delegate that. If it's a big no, it's coming from me. It's not coming from my assistant or anyone else. A big no isn't getting delegated. So there's like no is actually an opportunity to do amazing things. So just that's for starters.
Good tip.
A great tip.
It's a good tip. And so I'm not scared. But what that did is it doesn't make me scared because no one wants to. I don't want to be like known as, oh my God, I asked Jesse for 15 minutes of his time and he said no. What a jerk. I want to be liked. We all want to be liked.
Sure.
So that's important. No, look, I think that I've in my 20s, I was really good at marketing and networking, and I had no budget. So I used to write 10 handwritten letters a day, literally for a year. When I was 22, 23-ish, I would write handwritten letters to about 5 to 10 people every day. That was my marketing campaign. And so think about that. If you write 10 letters a day over 300, that's 3,000 people. That's 3,000 seeds that you're planting over the course of a year. Now, they're not all going to be customers or your best friend, but you only need like one or two. So for starters, I was really good at that. And the no's that I got were really just the beginning of relationships. Because even though it was a no, I now have permission at a restaurant to go and say, I sent you an email, you didn't respond, but I just want to introduce. I have permission to do that now. I'm not coming out of thin air. So I'm always, even to this date, I'm still planting a lot of seeds. I still write handwritten letters because, emails get deleted. There's just so much layers to get to the person, but everybody reads a handwritten letter. No one screens my mail for me, So it's still a really effective strategy for me. The other thing I would just add to that, I don't mean to go on and on, but I think
No, go on.
I know that I'm a little bit older, so I'm talking from experience. I have the right to say this because I've done it. I literally call it like the 3-minute miracle, but every day I invest about 3 minutes and I write a DM, because DMs are also a good way, a handwritten letter or a text or an email, and I send it to 3 people, because if I do 3 minutes, if I just take 3 minutes a day over the course of a year, that's 1,000 seeds I'm planting. Like, this is how it works, man. You got to put yourself out there. Going back to my dad, it's okay if you don't get 997 people responding, but 3 people are interested in your new, whatever you're doing. So I'm really always top of mind, consistently as a habit, reaching out to people. And it's always one way. It's like, Michael, I thought you might like this video on a new sauna heater because I know you like saunas. It's one way. I'm not asking for anything. Lauren, I know you like pink. So I just saw this really interesting thing about, I'm sending things that I think people would be interested in. I'm thinking of them. And that's a great way to break through the clutter. And it's a great way for people to feel like, wow, like he listens or he or she listens and cares.
Round out your point, what you're saying, if you go back to your DMs, I think I reached out about, I want to say like 5 times before you came on the podcast. I feel like I reached out in 2021. We kind of talked back and forth. We kind of talked in 2022. We tried to make it happen. Having you on the podcast was a result of planting seeds slowly. And so to see you at the house today, when I saw you, I said, this is so full circle because I've wanted you on the podcast for so long.
It's funny, like even with the size of the platform that this has reached, you and I have kind of been slowly talking. I was just trying to like I'm looking, it's like we're May of 21, just like slowly, hey, what's going on? We see each other here and there. And like my whole thought process is like the right time will come along when it fits into your calendar, when something lines up. But I think some people, they send a message one time. It doesn't go the way they want it to go. They get discouraged. They never send it again. And I think there's an art to, one, being patient, but 2, I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more on when you mean one way. Because I think sometimes people come in with an ask but it's a self-serving ask.
Yeah, I
Does
think
that make sense?
That's
Yeah.
difficult. When
It's like if someone like you who's reached a level of success that you have, and there's lots of people DMing you all the time, and if I came and said, Jesse, you need to come on the show because I need you to come on the show because it'll help me with my show. That's a wrong way to approach you. And I think that'd be the wrong way to approach me or Lauren or anyone else. I think people should understand a little bit more about the proper way to approach somebody.
Let me tell you about a hack that has saved my life. I need my sleep, and I have 2 kids under 3, so it's a lot. One thing I have done that I could not live without, though, is I've implemented a gently weighted sleep sack. The one that I use is by Dreamland Baby. It's so cute. It's neutral. But most importantly, my baby, Towns, associates it with sleep. So when I pull it out, he knows it's time to go to bed, and he immediately calms down because it's gently weighted. And it makes so much sense because I use a weighted blanket at night, and it does something to your nervous system that just like immediately relaxes you. So this one is very, very slightly weighted. It just gives you a feeling like the baby is like in a hug, and it helps them sleep. It helps them stay asleep too. This is one gift that I will give every single new mother. Like all my friends who are new mothers, I'm like, you have to try this. It's super interesting. The brand was created by this woman who noticed when she put throw blanket on her baby, he would immediately calm down. So she had this moment and she's like, oh my God, I have to create these gently weighted sleep sacks. And she did. And she called it Dreamland Baby. And it is literally saving lives everywhere. Go to dreamlandbabyco.com and enter our code SKINNY at checkout. You receive 20% off site-wide and free shipping. This offer is for new and existing customers. dreamlandbabyco.com, enter our code SKINNY. One thing I do not screw around with, and one thing that I do not change because I love it so much, is my multivitamin. The one that I take has a heavy emphasis on vitamin D. A lot of people don't get vitamin D in their diet, so this is really important. It is by Ritual, you know it, essential for women 18 plus. Why I'm obsessed with this brand is everything is traceable. So you can go on and you can actually see where their high quality ingredients come from. Everything is clean and bioavailable. And most importantly, there's 9 key nutrients in their 2 delayed release capsules. So I take 2 per day. I do it on an empty stomach. It's super gentle on an empty stomach. It has like a minty essence, so it's not harsh in the morning. And this is a brand that I've been taking throughout the last 3 years. I took the prenatal when I was pregnant with Zaza. I took the postnatal after both my babies, and I just believe in the brand so much so that I even had the founder on. I just love her ethos and her mission. It's absolutely incredible. Ritual multivitamins are vegan, non-GMO, project verified, gluten and major allergen free, certified B Corp, and made traceable. Like I said, we have a code for you, obviously. No more shady business. Ritual is essential for women 18 plus is a multivitamin you can actually trust. Get 40% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/skinny. This offer is only available through January 31st. Start Ritual or add Essential for Women 18 plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/skinny for 40% off.
Quick break to talk about Hinge. I am sitting here looking at my producer, Carson, and we were talking the other day. I did this whole poll in the office. I say, hey, what is the best dating app out there? And Carson said, I found my current girl on Hinge. And then many of the women in this office also said that they had found their partners on Hinge. So what is Hinge? Hinge is the dating app designed to be deleted. Why? Hinge gives you a sense of someone's personality and lets you share your own. You get to know potential dates through their unique answers to prompts, plus get a sense of someone's dating intentions and what they're looking for. I think this is for the serious dater, the person who's actually interested in developing meaningful relationships. I love that this app is designed to be deleted because it means it's designed to get people in actual relationships with people that they can actually build a life with. When it comes to successful online dating, the office results are in. Hinge seems to be the clear winner, where people are finding meaningful, lasting relationships, where people can actually get to know people in a meaningful way, and where they can authentically share themselves as well. So definitely check it out if you're thinking about getting into the online dating scene, or you're looking to switch it up and meet new people. So if you're somebody who's sick of putting yourselves out there and not getting a reciprocal return, and you just want to meet quality people who are looking for quality relationships, not trying to mess around, not trying to play the field, looking to get in a serious relationship with a like-minded person, definitely check out the Hinge app. Download Hinge and find someone worth deleting the app for now. Again, download the Hinge app on the App Store now.
Yeah, I think that, people are smart and people have their intuition usually, you could tell if someone has a different motive or a different plan. And it's when you authentically reach out to somebody, and compliment them, or, guys, I was with you guys today. You're amazing parents. Like I could just see how much you care about your kids, those little girls, and how you prioritize your life together. And it's inspiring. That's one way. I'm giving you an authentic compliment at a time where other people might not be doing it. You're going to remember it. If I send you information, that's one way, meaning I'm not asking for anything in return. Hey, if you come on my podcast, I'll come on your, that's trading. That's horse trading. We don't horse trade. That's not relationship building. And I found that, I'm not good at a lot of things, but I am good at relationships. And I found that when you build, especially in your 20s and your 30s, it never ends, but that's the time where you have the most flexibility to build a network and, say yes to everything. Like I'm in my 50s, I say no to mostly everything. But in my 20s, I said yes to as many things as I can because I wanted to put myself in a situation where I could get lucky. Luck doesn't happen sitting home watching the Kardashians. It happens when you go somewhere where the universe can reward you. And then you got to be good at whatever you do. So in my 20s, I was putting myself out there, and I was really, networking. And when you build those deep, authentic relationships early on, the people in your 20s and 30s, in your 40s will be the people that are in positions of power. They'll be the decision makers. They'll be the owners of the studio. They won't be the podcasters. They'll be owners of the whole damn network. And when you build those relationships, the floodgates open. And I think that, people look at business and through the financial lens. They overemphasize the financial lens and they under-index on the spiritual side of it. Seriously, the spiritual side of the business. What did you do? How'd you do it? What was the culture you built? Were you philanthropic? What was your retention rate? Were you kind to your customers? That's a whole nother side. And not everyone's going to be great on the financial side. It's hard. Anybody can care the most. Anybody can care the most. You don't need a 1,500 on your SAT. And people feel that, man. Customers feel that. You guys are where you are because they feel the connection between you. They feel like you're really trying to provide, even me, you're trying to pull out tips. You want your customers to get value. People feel that. And that's something that often is neglected.
When you look back on everything you do, what was the first big break that you had?
The first break I ever had was at 22 years old, right after college. I got signed to a record deal. And I signed to a record label called Delicious Vinyl in California. And the reason why it was the biggest moment in my life, even to this date, other than meeting my wife, is because my dad, I had no connections. My dad owned the plumbing supply. I didn't have a lawyer. I didn't have a manager. I didn't have an agent. I had nothing. And I went to 14, like I said, all these record companies on my own. I would sit in the lobby and hand them a cassette tape that I made on my answering machine with my, I know, and I got rejected. And then I got a deal. And what that did to me, and for anyone listening, I think this is the lesson, is it proved to me that if I stay with something that matters to me, I can be successful. And it proved to me that, wow, I could do this myself. I don't need, if I just did this myself, what else can I do? And, when people were on a day after here, when we're recording this, of the New York Marathon, for all the people that just ran the New York Marathon, they proved to themselves, all the first timers, that they can go further than they've ever gone in their life. And it's sending a message. They proved to themselves that they have more in the tank. And the lesson is that our greatest problem is the limitations we put on ourselves are often self-imposed. So when you break through those limitations, it opens up this thing wow, I'm going to go double my business plan. I got more in me. Let's double the business plan here, man. So I got that at 21. And then it was okay, all right, I'm going to start a jet company. I have no airplanes. I have no money. I don't know anybody really that is in, I don't know anyone in aviation. We started a private jet company with no airplanes and no money and did $5 billion in sales. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't get the record deal. If I went to door number one and they said, you're out of here. And I said, oh, okay, I stink. I'm not sitting here with you guys.
Yeah, it's just flexing that muscle and being able to understand that you can break past what you think you can do originally. And I think like, again, going back to enjoying 20s and 30s, the way that you think as you start to notch some of these wins under your belt and start to prove, I mean, even little things like going from the cold plunge and doing a minute and then going to 2. The next time you're going to realize like, okay, I'm not going to even think about a minute because I know I can do 2. Like that's the floor now. You're just setting these little things. And I think about that in business and in relationships and everything else. Like once you know you can break past this, that's your new starting point. Like that's not the end now. That's the beginning.
100%. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that you don't work hard in business in your 20s, but time is undefeated and you're never getting your 20. No one's beaten time. And the only way that you can really even compete is to do things that time can't take away. So, for example, I just rode my bike across the country with 10 friends. If I were to get sick tomorrow and couldn't do that again, time can't take that away. I already did it. It can't take away Marquis Jet or my record deal or selling carrot and celery sticks. I already did it. So what I'm saying is in your 20s, when you have even in any age, if you have an opportunity to create a memory or a moment or do something, you take it. And you get more of those opportunities usually in your 20s because just, you're young and vibrant, healthy enough to do it. And that's what I'm saying. Take advantage of that. We were talking, Michael and I were talking before, Lauren, about my dad who passed away recently from Alzheimer's. And, I had never really had grief in my life. I've had such a lucky life. I mean, the luckiest situation, no, never really experienced anyone super close to me dying. Just came from a great house, married a great girl, have healthy kids. I mean, I always say to Sarah, like, look where we are right now, because how does it get better? Like, your parents are alive, like, and it's important to take time and think about that stuff, man. Like, we got healthy kids. You know how lucky we are that we have healthy kids? Like, do you think you have problems? And
I don't think there's any greater stress than when a kid gets sick. And when I think about parents that go through that, it's like, I don't know anything. I don't think there's anything worse.
Right.
I don't think there
so
is.
When my dad passed away, I had no regrets because I completely emptied the tank in our relationship. And he emptied the tank in his relationship with me. And like when you pour all your soul into something, you don't have any regrets. And for me, I feel weird just talking about this, but like I've really lived my life. I feel like this is like a memoir for me. I don't know. Guys are getting me emotional. Like pouring so much soul into what I do. Like I was saying about the relationships and stuff.
When you say you guys poured everything out of the tanks in the relationship, do you just mean like you guys, like you got everything you needed to get out with each other? You went through every issue. You talked about everything you wanted to talk. Like,
Yes.
I think a lot of people unfortunately don't get there with their parents.
Very rare.
No, I know. And I feel so lucky about that. And like my dad showed up for everything. Every picture in my photo book, my parents are in it. Of big moments in my life. They're in every picture. And now so I got, when I had kids, I didn't get a manual, but I had my mom and my dad. Like when for a lot of people growing up, when they become parents, if they didn't have a great relationship or they came from a maybe dysfunctional household, like maybe their role models were someone they saw the parents they saw on TV, like the Brady Bunch or the, whoever. Like,
Sure.
So I got to experience that, and now I get to pass it on to my kids.
No, I think that's huge. And to your point, like not a lot of people are that lucky. So when your dad was going through Alzheimer's, how early on did you know that that's what it was? And what did you do personally to kind of manage it? Because that's my grandmother passed from Alzheimer's, and I obviously was close to her, but not nearly as close as I am with my father. I imagine that was extremely trying on you. How do you manage that and stay patient and not get frustrated and still, give him the care that he needs?
Well, the crazy thing is if we were all born 100 years ago, where do your parents live?
They live in San Diego still.
And what about you, Lauren?
San Diego.
Yeah, so you guys live 2,000 miles from your parents. If we were born 100 years ago, you'd live in the same house, or on the same block or in the same town and wherever you based. No one was living 2,000 miles away,
Sure.
And now, I'm here. My brother's in Florida. My mom's over here. Everyone's so scattered. So in my 30s, 40s, and 50s, because I went from college right to the pros. I was right in it. And my parents moved down to Florida. Like, I didn't see them that much. I mean, I thought I did, but maybe I saw them 3 times a year. So from 20 to 70, if I saw them 2 times a year, I saw them like 100 times ever again in my life, and in there, when I got older and had kids, as my parents, I see them like twice a year. So the last 5 years of my parents' life, think about it. If you only see your parents a couple of times a year and you see them twice a year, they live 5 years, you get 10 visits with them. So, it got like, I wish I had that time back.
I don't think I've heard anyone ever contextualize it that way. Like, gets your wheels spinning a lot more, especially as you have aging parents. If you start to think about it in terms of visits instead of years.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to my friends the other day because, I'm 55 and I had a group of entrepreneurs that I was coaching at my house, and I was saying, like, where are you going to be 5 years from now? And no one really can answer it. But I said, no, think about it. Like, my mom's 92. So in 5 years, my son is 14. One of my oldest son. So in 5 years from now, I doubt my mom, I hope she's here, but like, is she going to live to be 97? I don't know, man. My son will be in college. I'll be 60. 20 years from 80. Like, so when I think about that, it creates a lot of urgency around what I want to do right now and how I want to spend the time with my son, because if he's in college, he's gone. So, when you think about but people are so obsessed with right now. What am I doing this weekend? What are you guys doing for Thanksgiving? It's in 2 weeks. Well, what does it look like for you in 5 years when you're 42 and, and your daughters are now going into 8th or 9th grade, or whatever, 8th grade. What does that look like for you?
I'm dying that you're calling it my daughters because it's a daughter and a son, but I have to tell you something really funny.
I was close.
As a side note, no, everyone thinks that he is a girl because he has such long hair.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
His hair is so long. And the other day, someone said to Michael,
have I been saying daughters?
It's really funny though, because someone came up to Michael, like this old guy at church the other day, and he said, "You have a beautiful daughter," and it was our son. And we're like dressing him appropriately, but he has
I just
long
sat
hair.
in a sauna that was 297 degrees for 45 minutes.
No, I think it's funny that you keep saying daughters. It's hysterical.
No, but I mean,
Sorry, Towns.
But I think to your point, looking at time that way is such a different approach. And unfortunately, I think many people, I mean, time is undefeated, like you said. And I think sometimes we think we have a lot more than we actually do. Right? We're all living longer, these long, beautiful lives. But I think when you contextualize it into visits or time with kids or time, it starts to feel a lot smaller.
Yeah. I mean, I always like to think of it in terms of summers because the average American lives to be 78. So even if you're 37, that's only 40 summers left, and like, that's not a lot of summers or 40 ski trips or whatever. And when you think of it that way, like, you don't want to waste a minute of of those summers, and it just forces you to be, at least for me, if it repositions me to be a doer, to be aware. Just being aware of it makes me want to take the trip I wasn't going to take or not push it.
Because you don't want to waste the summer. You don't want to waste the time.
What's so interesting to me about you is that you have done so many things after another. So what I'm trying to say is I think a lot of young guys that make money would have a hit like you had with your jet situation. And then they would kind of maybe open a restaurant or try something else or kind of sit on the money, but you kept going. You are a doer. What propels that? When you sold your first company, did you immediately want to do something else? Or have you always been like someone who wants that momentum?
I think for me, like a couple of things come to mind. For starters, when I'm at the end of the journey, I don't want to look back and be like, I was the 80% version of me. I don't want to be like, that's a B minus. I don't want to be a B minus. So and I'm not one to celebrate like past. I don't have any pictures. I don't own a Marquis Jet hat or Zico coconut, any of the businesses that I have. I don't have any of, like, it's done. I'm like, okay, I did that. I have like a what's next mentality. And that's just the way that I'm wired. I love newness and challenges. And I still have an underdog mentality. I still like, I never got all fancy, you know. I'm still hungry. I still like feel like I have a chip on my shoulder, like a lot to prove. I'm competitive. So I think all of those things come into play. Yeah.
How do you think if somebody wants to have more of those traits, how do you think you can cultivate that? Do you think you can, or do you think that's something you're born with?
That's a friggin' great question, man. I think you have, again, I can only talk about it from my own perspective. And I think, so let me answer it this way. My brother asked me how my son was doing in swimming. He's a pretty good swimmer when he was like 9. And I'm like, he's doing all right, but he just doesn't have that eye of the tiger. And my brother said, oh, that's okay, as long as he's happy. And I'm like, nah, he's happy playing Fortnite and eating Haagen-Dazs. Like, is that really what we want? Like, should he like try to reach his potential? Like so to me, it's like, it's that common for everybody. I think it's like, we all have so much potential. There's so much opportunity in front of all of us, regardless of our skill levels. And, I think it's important, at least for me, it's important. Like, I feel like I have so much more in me. I feel like I haven't even done the big thing yet. I really do. Like, I just feel like that. I feel very driven.
I think also, I talk to a lot of young men especially, and I think people glamorize the hit. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to have this one big hit and then I'm going to be happy and then I'm going to settle down. And I try to tell people that, like, it's not the hit that you're actually going to like as much as the process and continuing to get better at that process. This one's for the pet lovers out there, the dog lovers. If you're not a dog lover, not a pet lover, what the hell are you doing listening to this show? We love the Farmer's Dog so much. This has been a longtime partner that we use every single day in our household for our pets that we love so much. Lauren and I spend so much time talking about different ways that we can take care of ourselves and not enough time talking about how to take care of our furry friends, our pets, the ones that give us the most love in life. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the Farmer's Dog, it's developed by vets, nutritionally balanced, and made from real healthy ingredients to human food safety standards. It's the best option for dogs at all life stages because it's not kibble, it's not canned goo, it's just real healthy food. Again, why would you not want to give your pets real healthy food? Traditional dry and wet dog food options are highly processed, can use much lower quality ingredients they claim to, and are extremely difficult to portion accurately. The Farmer's Dog makes it super easy for us. They send these packets straight to our door, and then we're able to portion control them for our pets every single day. They are thriving. They are happy. They get so excited whenever we pull out the packs. A fresh diet has been found to have all sorts of benefits, from healthier coat and skin to better breath, even easier digestion, and smaller, better poops. A healthy diet isn't just important for humans. It's also extremely important for our dogs. And dogs of any age at any stage can try the Farmer's Dog. We, of course, have an incredible offer for you. Get 50% off your first box of fresh, healthy food at thefarmersdog.com/skinny. Plus, you get free shipping. Just go to thefarmersdog.com/skinny to get 50% off. That's thefarmersdog.com/skinny. Quick break to talk about one of our longest running show partners, one of our favorite services, one of our favorite brands, and that is Thrive Market. Thrive Market has been our go-to for all of our grocery and household essentials for years now. I think since the history of this show, we might be going on 7-8 years running using Thrive Market. longtime listeners will remember that they played a huge part in the early years of this show as one of our first partners. And we've continued to work with them because we love their service so much. I love that Thrive Market carries brands with the highest quality ingredients and sourcing methods. They restrict hundreds of ingredients across their food and cleaning categories, and I can use their on-site filters to suit my lifestyle needs. So whether you're looking for organic kids, food, snacks, low sugar alternatives, or gluten-free pantry essentials, you can curate your own shopping experience. Lauren and I, for years, have been using the service to find all of the healthiest, all of the cleanest, all of the best ingredients. Outside of finding the best products, best ingredients, and saving some money, you are also helping a family in need with their 1-for-1 membership matching program. They've done this for years. It's an incredible program. You can join and they give. So check out one of the best brands and best services on the market. Join in on the savings with Thrive Market today and get 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. Go to thrivemarket.com/skinny, 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/skinny, thrivemarket.com/skinny. Check it out.
There are 3 things that I have every single day, and I am addicted to them. And I am pretty strict with what I eat when I'm at home because I really like to do high protein. And I'm like 80-20. So when I travel, I'm like more of the 20. But when I'm at home, there's 3 things, like I said, that I eat. And they are all by Chroma Wellness. First thing, their beauty matcha. Oh my God, it is so good. I froth it with raw milk and some water, and I do it over ice, or I just do it with hot water. I do 2 scoops, and I feel like I'm getting a caffeine boost that tastes delicious, that's super low sugar, but has protein in it. The next thing is, and this is something that Michael's also implemented into his diet, is they have this like kind of spicy, not too spicy, cranberry hydration elixir. And I'll use a frother again and froth it up with water and ice. And the last thing that I eat, a scoop in bed, is they have this, oh my God, cookie butter. And it has like goji berries on the top of it. And it tastes like a cookie butter, but it's chewy with the goji berries. I am telling you, these 3 like sort of treats get me through my day. And Chroma is offering free shipping on all 5-day resets through the end of January, as well as an exclusive 15% discount for TSC listeners only. Go to chromawellness.com and enter code SKINNY at checkout. The 5-day reset is such a good one after the holidays.
I agree with you. And I think when I look back on my journey, what I'm most proud of is, and I've had a couple of exits in business. I've had a lot of failures too. I've had a lot of businesses that didn't work, or certainly a few. But what I'm really proud of is, you know, how I did it, first of all, but also that like on the other side of that business, which took a lot of energy, I've really invested a lot in my life resume. Because like that's my business resume, but equally, if not more important, is your life resume. So I mentioned earlier, like the bike ride across the country, those kind of things, like to mix adventure and spend time with my kids and, you know, have great relationships with my friends and all that is again, back to the spiritual side, is so important. And so it's not so much like selling a company, then starting another one. To me, that was just business. I don't even really sell it. I never think about it, but I think about my life resume a lot, you know, the adventures I want to take. And as we enter 2024, you know, before the show started, I was showing you guys this calendar that I had and how I kind of map out. I'm a big planner. I'm like calendar obsessive. I feel like if you don't plan it, it won't happen. And like, it's hard to create newness because we live in routine.
Yep.
It's like, where does newness come from? You have to like plan it, you know? And I've been doing something for the last, I didn't even realize I was doing it, but now I know I'm doing it. Now I plan it. But I do 3 things every year around this time that really help me with that life resume. The first thing that I do is there's an old Japanese ritual. Have you guys ever heard of this? Called the misogi.
Yeah, it's like a challenge that's almost unattainable. Right?
Yeah.
It almost breaks you, but you can.
Michael's the 4th Japanese.
Yeah.
You would never know that.
Yeah.
But
so we've kind of taken the liberty to tweak that, but the notion around it is that like you do one big year defining thing a year. So like at the end of 2023. We're working so hard. We have families. Like, what do you have to show for it? What'd you do? You know, it's important that you can look back on your journey and be like, oh, in 2015, I wrote a book, Living with the Seal. 2017, I launched a new company. 2019, we started our podcast. Like, what's that one? So every year I have one big year defining thing. And so I put that on my calendar.
And it doesn't always have to be a business thing. It could be like, was the bike thing
right?
Okay.
Just anything that's challenging. So I do that. And I'm going to tell you why this is important, and you're going to freak out. The second thing I do is I add every other month, I do something I normally wouldn't have done on like one weekend day. So like instead of watching the Georgia football game, I might take my kids fishing. I might go to a museum. I might go to a lecture. I do like a mini adventure. So I'll do like every other month, every 8 weeks, I should be able to take a day, like one out of every, 60 days to do something I normally wouldn't have done. So at the end of the year, I'll have 6 little mini adventures. Now, here's why that's so important. If you're 37, I'm just going to go to you, Michael, for a second. I'm looking at you. And you live to be 77, the average American. You're going to live way longer, especially the way you're doing your biohacking. But that's 40 years. That would give you 40 year-defining things on your life resume, 40 unbelievable things. And that will give you 240 mini adventures that you didn't have. If you're 78 and you have 40 insane events in your life and 240 mini adventures, like, you crushed life. Forgetting about the business, you fucking crushed life.
And how do you decide what these mini adventures are?
They could be like, I'm just super intentional about adding things throughout the year that I normally wouldn't have done. And usually it's around my friends. It could just be like my college friends come over. I took my son to Washington, D.C. on a father-son trip last year. We went skiing. It's just things like that. And I put them on my calendar and because if you don't put them on your calendar early, your calendar is going to fill up with Zoom calls, weddings, appointments, kids' sporting events, and then you have nothing to show for it.
Lauren and my best friend, they make fun of me because they're like, why is this guy planning these trips and these excursions?
I don't make fun of you. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Keep planning it. I'm going to put it on my big ass calendar. You keep planning it.
Similar to you, I feel if I don't plan it that way, it's just not going to get done. I'm going to get
Michael's
stuck
a big
running
planner.
this.
Are you a planner?
I'm a planner like a psycho from a micro perspective, but
day to day?
Yes. Michael's looking way far out. I'm more detail. He's more
like
big
I always like get, my cross to bear, and sometimes I get in trouble, is that I maybe sometimes live too far in the future. I don't live in the past at all. I don't think about what happened yesterday.
When you said that you should have your 5 years written out, he has his 5 years written out in months.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's very, that's the Japanese in him. He's
but
very.
That's my problem, is like I go so far sometimes that I got to.
He will be talking about like when we're 62. I'm like, can I just get through the fucking morning? I need a coffee and I need to get a workout in the sauna.
Here's why. And I hate to be one of these corny people, but everything I've ever written down, and even if it's vague, if it's written down a year, 2, 3, I've either hit it or gone past it.
This is true.
And I look back on some of this writing because I keep the notes, and I read it sometimes to be like, oh, wow, look what I thought I could do compared to what I actually did. And this could be anything. It'd be like, oh, I want to be able to get in shape, or I want to, be able to run this far. I want to be able to lift, little things. But I think sometimes the difficulty in my personal life is if I'm living too far, you have to anchor yourself sometimes with the presence. But to your point, I don't think about the past at all. If I have a success or if I sell a win, it's like that happened, I move forward. I don't think on it. I don't dwell on it. If someone upsets me, I don't think on it. I don't dwell on it. I'm never angry with anybody. It's just like, go, go, go.
Yeah. I'm very similar in that. I'm very similar in that.
When you move from your first company to your second company, how do you decide to go from what you're doing to beverage? Like what's the interim? I want to know what is going through your head of how you decide to do something that's completely different on your next business.
So I follow my enthusiasm, and now let me tell you where I'm at now, and then I'm going to go back to when I was 20. Now it's aggravation versus reward. Like, I want low aggravation. So if something is high aggravation, but it might have high reward, you have to weigh the aggravation factor.
Give an example of what you mean by that.
Well, I had an idea recently that that had to do with aviation, making commercial aviation feel like private aviation. It was a big idea. And I had a partner lined up, and I showed the whole plan to my wife. And she's like, this is an unbelievable idea. Don't do it. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is bigger than Marquis Jet. Like, this is huge. She's like, it is. But do you want to take calls at 2 a.m. from a customer that shows up? Do you want to blah, blah, blah? Do you want to go to Japan? And I was like, no. She's like, it's just not worth it at this stage of your life. So it was a high aggravation to build it, to build a team, to get a CEO, to build the infrastructure, so I decided not to do it. So that would be an example of that. Another example would be like getting into a partnership for a great idea, but the people, like I'm on friend reduction right now. I'm on friend reduction.
What is friend reduction?
Like I don't like if it's a high aggravation management team, or I don't love the guys or girls that are doing it. That would be another example of high aggravation. Like this person's like always down, or so that would be another high aggravation person. Friend reduction is just like I've outgrown a lot of my friends, and they've outgrown me. Which is okay. We were great friends when we were 30s, but they're like, you've changed so much, Jesse. Yeah, I have 4 kids, and I'm married.
Yeah, I'm not getting invited to as many bachelor parties as I used to.
I'm not going to the bar. Like, you're single.
Yeah,
I've changed. You're right.
Yeah, I always say, like Lauren says, are you upset your friends aren't calling? I'm like, listen, I got 2 young kids at home. My friends, I'm not out at the bars or the clubs till 2 and I can't be. I look like a total creep if I was.
Exactly.
It's just what it is. It's not that I don't love those guys anymore, that we didn't have great times. It's just like they're single, I'm not.
Wait 10 more years and watch what happens, because your friends, of the 10 guys that I rode my bike across the country with, I only knew one of them 10 years ago. And now they're like my closest friends. 9 of those guys I met over the last 10 years. So, your friend groups are going to change as you get older, and your friends are going to become the parents of your children's friends and people you meet in school. Like I said, your life in the beginning, when we opened up this talk, your life model is going to evolve, and that's okay.
So when you decided to switch career, or I guess you didn't switch, but you decided to move on to the next thing, was that a lot of aggravation in what you chose?
So that's now. So back then it was enthusiasm. I saw an opportunity, like I switched from private aviation to coconut water. Entrepreneurs do one of 2 things. They either make something that exists better, or they create something new. And I'm a runner. So I had this private jet company. I'm a big runner. I was training for a 100-mile race that I did. And I did a lot of research around hydration and nutrition and discovered coconut water. And this is in 2006. So I started drinking coconut water. I felt great. And I'm like, this is the fountain of youth. Like, this is going to be the next big thing in beverage. And that's what led me on. And there was nothing in the marketplace. So I as an entrepreneur, saw an opportunity to create something new, bring something new to the market. And I had a lot of enthusiasm about that. If the passion, you can have a great idea, but if the passion isn't there, the obstacles are going to be too big. You have to have the passion and the enthusiasm around the journey, not even your widget, around the journey of what you signed up for it to be successful. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I think like when people, sometimes when we speak, and the last time we saw you, we were all speaking, I always say to people like that when people say, hey, if you find your passion, you won't work a day in your life. There's some truth to that. But the thing is, you're always going to work. It's just the passion gives you the ability to get through all the shit that comes with the work.
Yeah.
Right. Like
I never liked selling airplanes at Marquis Jet. And like we had a private jet. That's what we did. We sold airplanes, but I had incredible enthusiasm for the customer service, for meeting people, for building the relationships, for like the journey of that entrepreneurial. It wasn't about the airplanes. People think it's like always the product. Of course you have to believe in your product and like your product. But I had such a passion for like starting this company that it didn't matter if it was, whatever it was, it happened to be airplanes, that I was going to get behind it.
Yeah, I always get nervous. We talked a little bit about this in the sauna. Sometimes you'll hear people and maybe they haven't ever had a business or they haven't worked, and they're telling people, well, if you find your passion, you don't work and do these. It's like you're always going to have to work. You're going to have to work in the gym. You're going to have to work on yourself. You're going to have to work in a relationship. You're going to have to work in your business. But the excitement and the passion enables you to get through all of that when it gets really challenging, which it inevitably will in every area.
I totally agree. And that's why I think it's important to have things on your calendar that excite you, because if you're stuck at a job that you don't love, or or you're on a downward spiral or whatever, and you have something on your calendar that you're excited for, it changes the game a little bit. Like it really gives you something to look forward to and shoot for. It becomes your North Star. And that's really helped me a lot getting through certain situations. Like this is a tough time, but I'm going to Puerto Rico in Thanksgiving. It's going to, it helps me get there.
What point through all of this in your career did you meet your wife? And how did you guys meet? Was it like a first date?
We share the same brain because I wanted to pivot and talk about, obviously you've had all these, but as a husband and a father, you've obviously done very well as well. So I think it's relevant to talk about.
Yeah, I met my wife later in life. So I met Sarah had Spanx. She started Spanx when she was, I want to say like 28, 30, something like that. And I met her when she was 36 and I got married at 40 and Sarah was 37.
And you had already sold your beverage company by this time.
I sold Marquis Jet and I sold the beverage company a year into our marriage. And she still owned 100% of Spanx. And we met she was a customer of ours at Marquis Jet. We met at a party that we had in Vegas. And we got married a year later.
Did you guys like each other right away?
So the way that this was set up was we had 4,000 customers. Every rep from each territory was allowed to invite one person. So our Georgia sales rep was allowed to invite one person to this party, this poker tournament we were having in Vegas. And the Georgia rep sent a picture of Sarah. She had like an apple on her head. It was like a promo picture. And I was like, don't send anyone other pictures or anyone. Make sure she goes to the Vegas. Make sure she comes. And we were married a year later.
So you guys were synergistic.
She didn't know. I knew. I don't think she knew. I had to put on a whole, it took me I had to fight.
I think it's so cool because you guys are both powerhouses on your own and you've been able to come together and support each other without, from what I see, you guys are cheerleading each other. There's no jealousy. That's not always the case. I've interviewed a lot of people where there's been divorces because the husband can't handle the woman's success or the woman can't handle the man's success. How have you guys maintained such a synergistic, happy marriage with 4 children? I mean, what are the tips?
You said what, 16 years now?
Yeah. 15,
and 4 kids.
Years.
Wow.
I think part of it is we got married later in life.
Uh-huh.
And, Sarah had to go through all of her 20s and 30s, when are you going to get married? Are you dating anyone?
Annoying.
And she went all the way to 37, not all the way, but she was 37. And but she was already independent with Spanx and I was independent. So that helped a little bit, getting married later. I was more mature. I wasn't ready to get married and neither was she in our 20s or even our early 30s. She was focused on her business, but to answer your question, so I think that helps. No, I think, look, for when Sarah's star is shining bright, I'm her biggest cheerleader. And when my star shines, she's my biggest cheerleader. Without that, it would be so weird. I don't know. So no, I mean, and part of being in a partnership is when you struggle, the other person feels it, and we both share in that, and yeah. And it's worked out great. But it's, it is, I could see how it could be really hard to be married to a successful woman.
Well, I think this is, we talked about this a little bit when we got out of the sauna. I think a lot of men struggle if they are not maybe the main breadwinner or the main star of the household. I mean, that's, the way that most people, the most examples of a household, especially our generation, is the guy went to work, the mom stayed home. That's obviously changed drastically. My example as a kid is my mom always worked. So I've always been attracted to women that were doing that kind of thing. But I think a lot of men are excited for their wife or their girlfriend until all of a sudden maybe the wife or their girlfriend starts to be more successful in some area. And I wonder your perspective on that.
I love when great things happen to Sarah, and I'm always asking her, how can I support her in that? And she does the same for me. And I think that's that's an important part of a team. There's zero competition at all. And we're a team, it's if she's winning, our family's winning. If she's losing, And we share that with our kids too. We have family dinner almost every night, or certainly if we're both in town every night. And, we talk about these things. Like, we ask our kids, like, what happened this week that was good at school? What happened that wasn't good at school? And we have family meetings on Sunday mornings, and everyone gets to talk about their week. And then each one of my sons and my daughter, their brothers and sisters, stick up for each other. Like, it's important that team and that family unit is aligned. So it's not just Sarah and I, it's even our kids, it's so communication is really important.
It sounds like that with the story that you told about your big idea when you told her and she said, do you really want to be doing it? Sounds like you guys are very like aligned as a team.
Yeah, we are. I mean, sometimes she'll give me input and I'll be like, I really want to do it. And again,
then you have to come to your own senses and you have to make it seem like it's their idea, even though it's not their idea and it's the woman's idea and we've puppeteered the whole thing. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Oh my God. And and then the other, it's just business. Like, we're not defined by that. I guess outside Sarah is known as the Spanx girl. I mean, you're the Spanx lady. She gets that a lot. But we never talk about it. Like, she's not defined by it in our house. She's Charlie's mom. She's Tepper's mom. Like, I never talk about I never even think about business or what the public thinks. Like, I never think about that. I'm thinking about, how do I get my kids better for their football game? How do they do better on a test? How do I help them deal with bullying? And how do they say thank you and please? Like, that's the only thing on my mind.
How are you guys, with all your successes, going to raise kids? How are you doing it in this day and age? How do you also, there is such a gray area with this and a finesse of how to raise children you guys have been so successful. How do you keep them humble? I'm just curious, how you guys look at it.
The hardest thing for me is, as a parent, one of the hardest things is recognizing that our children are on their own journey and it's not my journey. So I used to play basketball till midnight. And my mom like, Jesse, get inside. My oldest son wants to play Fortnite. And I can't be like, that's his journey. So at first that would tear me apart. I'd be like, why aren't you outside playing basketball? That's what I did when I was a kid. And then I'd be like, whoops, this is his journey. He doesn't want to play basketball.
You can make a shitload of money playing Fortnite. A shitload. Those kids
my
make
dad
billions of dollars now.
He told me all the time. He's like,
I know, you're right.
I would not be surprised if I'm interviewing your son in 10 years.
Get inside and play Fortnite.
Listen,
stay inside and play. You need more.
He's sitting on the mic. I'm like, so how was your childhood? He's like, well, my dad used to tell me that I should go play basketball, but all I really wanted to do was play Fortnite.
Exactly.
I always say my dad used to give me so much shit for playing video games all the time when I was a kid. And so I quit. And I was like, if I was born a little bit later,
you never know.
I'd be a multi-millionaire Fortnite streamer instead of a podcaster.
Right.
There's just the opportunities that exist. But still, no, I hear what you're saying. It's just, we think about this all the time.
All the time.
I want to keep my kids humble and grateful. And like you said, saying thank you. And I want to make sure, without micromanaging it, it's a finesse.
No, but I want to also there's this book that Lauren and I are reading together in bed. It's a weird, interesting book that I stumbled across on Amazon. It's 32 letters from Rockefeller to his son. And the very first letter starts out with basically saying, your start does not guarantee where you finish. And he's basically coaching his son, saying, you're going to start a lot further than where I did.
It's phenomenal.
It's such a good book.
And he talks about
it's such a good book. It's unbelievable.
He talks about how he had very humble upbringings and how his books in high school were given to him by neighbors and how he had to work for $5 a week and all this stuff. And his son was obviously going to start off the heels of the richest man in the world. And he basically coaches, was basically warning him, you have to put in this effort. And he tells this story about these kids that he's like, they're self-made millionaires. And this guy says, yeah, they started with 20 and now they only have one. And the letters are interesting because Lauren and I, obviously we want to work and we want to, be able to provide, but at the same time, we want to go back to what you were talking about earlier, which is how do you give these kids enough grit so that they don't rest on their laurels and they.
I think, for Sarah and I, we try to the most important thing is our children's self-esteem, that they have good self-esteem. So we want to do things that boosts their self-esteem. So part of that is putting them in situations like we praise the effort. We praise the effort. So it's not like, oh, you scored 3 touchdowns today. It's like, I love watching how all that hard work you did this week paid off. I love watching how hard you tried. It's always we praise the effort. And then, disappointment's been stripped from kids. They make every team. There's participation trophies. You have to invite every kid to the birthday party and where our kids go to school. Like every kid in the classroom has to go to the birthday parties. And disappointment's a part of life. Like you can't take away disappointment in a kid's childhood. You can't so my dad, when they used to throw out a baseball catch, if my mitt was down, my dad would let the ball hit me in the face instead of catching it. And I want to block every ball that comes at my kids, but you need to get hit in the face sometimes. And we have to let our children experience disappointment. So nothing to do with money, nothing to do with let your kid, it's okay. They need to have a coping mechanism. So those little things are really important. Self-esteem is really important. Sticking up for yourself, feeling good about. So doing things that make your kids feel good about themselves is really important. And we try to put them in situations, not give them, put them in situations where they can experience that.
And what are things that you guys might consider disciplining them for? Like, is there a behavior or something that they would maybe do that you're saying like, hey, we don't allow that? Or like for Lauren and I would say like, if our kids ever bullying anyone, like that's going to be a big problem for them.
Absolutely.
It's not going to fly.
I think that's an individual decision for each parent. But I think, when you're dating, before you get married, I never said to Sarah, how do you want to discipline our kids when we have children? Where do you want to send? Do you want to send them to a religious school? Do you want them to date within our religion or do you want them to eat healthy foods or fast food? Like we never had that conversation ever. When we were dating, I was like, when we were engaged, I'm like, okay, let's talk about the children we don't have and get aligned. So more importantly is like being aligned on that stuff now. So like, it's less about how we do it. It's more about, we have to be aligned on it. And if we're not aligned, like we had this the other night, we had a disagreement about something over like food or something like late at night. And in the old days, Sarah or I'm saying Sarah, but I could easily be me, would correct each other in front of the kids. I'd be like, oh no, Sarah, they can't, and we would like disagree or I would trump her. No, your mom is not right. It's okay. But now 2 nights ago, I was like, sweetie, can I talk for you a second? It was more like this, sweetie, can I talk to you for a second in private over here? It wasn't. And then I was like, please don't ever do that again. Like you trumped me, which takes away my authority. So, and we had a conversation. And so those things are really important. Just a tip.
No, it's hard. We're both guilty of trumping each other.
To do it in, and then the other thing I would say about that is I saw, I was giving a speech and in the afternoon, I always go to listen to the speakers before. Like I'm a student of public speaking. So I love listening to lectures and talks. And there were all these breakout groups. And there was one gal had a breakout session about parenting and marriage. So I went to it. It was phenomenal. By the way, and now we work together. I hired her as a coach and now we work together in my programs and whatever. Dr. Karen Gordon, she's amazing. And one of the things that she said in this talk was, it's important that your kids see that mommy and daddy come first. And I'd always been taught the kids come first. It's like, oh, no, it's our kids. No, like they have to know that mommy and daddy are right and that like we go on dates and that we're connected. That's got to be the number one thing. And
I completely agree with that.
That they come second because otherwise they're running the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they feel like they have almost leverage over you.
100%.
You have to show
leverage
a synergy as parents Just like you show synergy in business, you have to show it to the kids and show them who's boss.
No, it's incredible how even at a young age, how quickly they can try to flip that and take authority over you if you're not careful.
I would be crazy not to talk to you about daily routines, time management, productivity. What are things that you do to be the most productive? I know you talked about the big ass calendar, but what are things that you do on a micro level? Do you employ certain people to do certain things? How do you stay so productive, so energized every single day?
Well, I don't have like a routine that like at 6 o'clock I get up and like 4, 5, 8 o'clock I do this. Like, I feel like that's so much pressure and it's just not the way I operate. I couldn't keep that. So my routine, but the things that I like to do, like sauna and cold plunging, for example, is part of my routine, but it's not like I do that every day at 10. It's just something I want to squeeze in during the day. So for starters, my day starts the night before. You hear so much about morning routines, but like evening routines. So I lay out my day for the following day in advance. So like, I can't just wake up and wing it. Like, the competition is too good. So like I lay out my day the night before and I follow that schedule, but that schedule changes.
Is this in Google Calendar?
I handwrite it.
You handwrite it. See, this is why I love talking to all different entrepreneurs. You handwrite it. So the night before you sit down, you're like at 8 o'clock.
There's all kinds of studies about handwriting.
I'm obsessed with it. Tell us. So you sit down on just like a regular pad of paper and handwrite it.
Yeah.
Huh.
And what are you writing down? Are you writing your goals for the day, or are you writing specifically the time?
I lay it out. So I'll be like, I'm going to run from 8 to 10. I'm going to exercise, whatever. 10 to 4, I'm working on whatever. I have a call at 1 and I lay it out. So I'm like, and I'm following it. So that's the first thing. So like, I don't wake up like, what am I doing today?
Yeah.
What's the best use of my time? I do that every night. And I have an assistant. So she sends it to me and I can tweak it, but I have it all laid out. That's the most important thing. And then I used to put a lot of pressure on myself day to day. And now I think in terms of weeks. So let me give you an example. I'm a runner. So I'd be like, I'm going to run 7 miles every day this week. But inevitably something happens. I drive to get my son, get him a strep test. I can't run. So like, I set myself up for failure. So instead of that, I say like, I'm going to run, 49 miles, 35 miles this week. So if I miss a day, I can make it up.
So if you miss 7 miles one day, you could do like 10 miles the next day and 11, whatever.
I've greatly increased my odds of success. It's like, I'm an author. I'm writing a book. I'm going to write 10 pages a day. I can never do that every day. I'm going to write 70 pages this week. So if I miss 2 days, I can make it up. So I'm thinking in terms of weeks versus day to day. And that's, it's much better, much better. It takes the pressure. I have enough pressure. What do I want to put that much pressure on me every 365? I just took 365 days and I shrunk it down to 52 weeks of 52 versus 365.
Well, especially speaking of my friends without kids, when they give me these elaborate routines, but they don't have kids yet, and they have like, there's nothing that's going to derail their day. I'm like, listen, like, I don't know. Someone gets sick. Some kid could throw up. That's just like
100%.
Like you need flexibility.
And then the other things for me is like, I have a list of like, I made a list of like 5 or 10 things that I like, if time wasn't an issue or money wasn't an issue, what do I love to do? I love playing sports with my kids, and hopefully they love it too. Hopefully I can keep it fun enough that they love it. So I want to make sure that when I had Marquis Jet, a guy that worked for me, I was single at the time, came in and he was like, I said, what'd you do this weekend? He's like, I took my son to soccer. How'd he do? He's he scored 9 goals. I was like, what? He scored? Pele doesn't score 9 goals. Like, what are you talking about? How'd he get so good at soccer? He's like, I spend 5 minutes a day with him. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, all the other kids, they have 1 practice a week and then they play in a game. But we play 5 minutes every day. So when we come back at the end of the month, we've spent 3 or 4 more hours, whatever the math is, more than the other kids playing soccer. And it's just compounded. He's really good. So I'm like, I'm spending 5 minutes a day. And I do.
I'm spending 5.5.
Yeah, you're 5?
Yeah.
I'm going to spend 10. No, but that has been like a lesson I never forgot ever. And there's actually something, I posted this today, called the rule of 100. And the rule of 100 states that if you spend 18 minutes a day, adults, that's 109 hours a year, 18 minutes a day. So 100 hours, let's just say, the rule of 100 in any discipline. So playing the piano, MMA fighting, whatever, archery, you'll be better than 95% of the world's population in that discipline. So like imagine if your kids, I mean, it's not realistic, but every year they chose one thing. This year we're going to get really good at, you know, the trampoline or whatever. By the time they're like 40, they'll be Jason Bourne. Your son will be Jason Bourne. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes consistency. So back to your question, Lauren. I made a list of the things I love to do. Playing sports with my kids, sauna and cold plunging, breath work. I love doing like Wim Hof breathing. And every day I try to do like 2 or 3 of the things I love to do. Like every day, wherever it's scheduled. It's not the when, it's the what. I try to do a couple of things every day that I love to do because I show up so much better as a dad, as a husband, as a boss, in meetings, everywhere when I check my box. We took a sauna and a cold plunge today. I went for a run. Those are 2. Those are my 2 vitamins, my daily vitamins. And I do that religiously every day. And you know what? I'm so enthusiastic. I have so much energy and so much zest for life, like because of that. And I've been doing it since I'm a friggin' teenager. I didn't realize it.
This wasn't something that you became successful in.
No.
You always did it.
And it has nothing to do with money.
Mm-hmm.
I love riding my bike. I love running. I love swimming. I love doing breath work. All the things I just mentioned. I can't do them all every day, but I'm doing 2 or 3 of them every day. And, you know, this is crazy. When I had Marquis Jet, I was 29 we flew the who's who of pop culture, CEOs, athletes, and entertainers on our airplanes. And I was obsessed with their habits. I'm a byproduct of this. Anytime I had a free moment, I would ask these amazing actors and athletes and CEOs, like, what time do you wake up? How do you spend your day?
You sound like me.
Where do you vacation?
Vacation, that's a good one.
How do you live rich? So when I was 30, got a little older in my 30s, I had a meeting with one of our customers. This guy was incredibly wealthy. And I said to him, I'm not going to say his last name, but I said, Jim, how do you live rich? Like, what do you do? And he told me that every day, first he said, I wake up and I read 6 newspapers, which again, some of this stuff doesn't resonate with me. I'm never going to do that. But some of it did. And he went through a whole checklist of things he did. And he goes, I take 3 hours a day cumulative for me. I'm like, tell me about that. He goes, yeah, like I might go, read a paper for 20 minutes, go in the sauna for 20 minutes. I might go for a walk, but cumulatively throughout the 24 hours a day, cumulatively, I'll take 2 or 3 hours a day for me. And I'm like, I'm doing that. And I asked him why. He's like, oh, I'm the happiest guy in the world. Like when you check the box, now if my wife says, I want to go to the opera. I don't want to go to the opera, Sarah. I hate the opera. But if I did my bike ride and I'm sauna, I'm more than happy to go to the opera.
Because you already did your
stuff. If the
steps.
opera takes away from the bike ride and the sauna, I'm resenting my wife. So those 2 or 3 things, now I can I went to my daughter's softball game for 2 hours yesterday. It was so boring. I loved it. Because before that, I did those things for me. So I'm showing up way better as a parent and as a husband because of it. It's critical, man.
I also think to perform at the level that I think all of us want to perform at and to show up as the parents that we want to show up with, that we have to run our personal life as athletes. And an athlete wouldn't just show up to play a game. They'd go to their stretcher. They go practice. They go meet with whatever they do to get in the headspace. They don't just show up and play the basketball game.
Well, again, we were
100%
talking
right.
in the sauna and we were, we're like everybody knows, like we put a big emphasis on doing wellness things. And sometimes people have asked like, hey, do Michael and Lauren really actually like do those things they talk about? And I said, no, you don't understand. Like doing those things enables us to do the other things. If we didn't do those things, we couldn't do the things that maybe quote unquote we're known for. Does that make sense?
I saw it firsthand. It's like your house, like a training compound. No, it's like,
because it's so funny. Like I would say,
who's gnarlier, me or Goggins in the cold plunge?
Let me tell you, no, your cold plunge game.
No, Lauren's gnarly.
Lauren is next level.
Do you think Wim would approve?
You are Wim Hof approved.
Really?
Yeah, you're elite.
You think I could go in
She's
the
gnarly.
snow?
She's elite.
No, she's gnarly.
And here's another thing. Like she's full conversation in it, and she comes out. The shivering didn't even impact. She's like, she literally said, "I love to shiver."
Yeah, no, she's listen.
You took the you freaked shivering out.
I'll take this from Jesse Itzler.
No, shivering.
Pull the clip and show everyone.
No, listen, I will feel like I can cold plunge with the best of them, then I'll cold plunge with my wife, and I'm like, I am a total.
I'm
bitch.
not gonna
like,
lie, and this is not even to brag. I could have done 5.
No, I know you could. It's wild. Okay, I would be
Wim. I'm available.
I would be personally remiss if I didn't ask you a selfish question. I think a lot of the audience has maybe experienced you and knows you from speaking. And I mean this as an extreme compliment. I think you are one of the best speakers I've ever seen publicly. The way, not just the way that you speak, but you know how to get into the crowd. You're moving around. You basically like
he pulls you in.
You pull people in, and you.
It's a charisma.
It's not like when you see a Jesse speech, and I've seen you speak a few times. You don't just sit up there on stage with a mic and talk behind a podium. Like you're really active. I always say this on the show. One of my personal biggest fears years ago was public speaking. I obviously now speak all the time for a living, and do this show. But what do you personally think makes an impactful speaker?
There's so many different styles. But first of all, thank you. I spend a lot of time on it.
You can tell.
It took a lot of reps, and it matters so much to me. I think the first thing is it really matters to me. I think the number one thing for anyone doing public speaking is to talk with conviction, and to be, you hear the word authentic, but to be yourself and tell. I think the things that make the biggest difference is I tell stories that only I can tell because they only happen to me. So I'm telling stories about my business journey, my bike ride, etc. They're things that I've experienced. The more you experience, the more you have to offer. And that alone makes me unique than the other 8 billion people in the world, because I'm not saying get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like anyone can say that. I'm saying this is how I felt when I rode across America, and this is how I dealt with it, and this is what I learned from it. This is why it's important, and this is how you can do it in your life. So that's a lot different than saying, a lot of people are saying things like, you have to have good habits. No shit. How do you do that?
Right.
Like no shit.
It's like saying drink water. Like when someone says, how do you get your skin like that? And they say drink water.
When I was in college, I took a public speaking class. It was a throwaway class. I needed 3 credits, and my friends were like, take the public speaking class. It's a joke. It's so easy. I walked in there and I was like, this is the most important class I took in all of college. My college tuition is now where I went to school at American University is $40,000 a year. That's $160,000. If I only took that class, it would have paid for itself. And I remember my public speaking teacher giving me a framework, and I still use it today. I use it in presentations and meetings. I use it on a big stage. I use it in front of my team. The first thing is I always have an icebreaker. So there's a story. It doesn't have to be relevant about what I'm talking about today, but something that's either makes me vulnerable or it's funny or whatever. And it could be as simple as like, I'm making this up, but like, oh my God, I was walking in here today to your show and someone recognized it, like, oh my God, I love you. I'm a huge fan of yours, Jamie. No, it's Jesse, so that's like already like, that's an icebreaker. Anyway, it's great to be here. So there's like, I don't take, that already says I don't take myself serious. Whatever. I'm using that as a bad example. So you want to have an icebreaker. 2 is you want to tell people in the audience what it is you're talking about. People want to follow along and know what it is you're going to be talking about today. Guys, today, I'm so glad we got the whole office today. Today, I want to talk about March sales. Oh, okay. I know what he's going to talk about. So icebreaker, you want to tell people what you're going to talk about. You want to deliver. Number 3 is you want to deliver on that promise. So whatever you tell them you're going to talk about, you want to deliver on that. And then 4 is you want to leave people with actionable takeaways so they can leave and actually implement something. I'm not here to entertain you. You want to leave our talk with something that you can apply into your everyday life. And that's always been the framework. And then it's just transitions between. And then for me, I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories that have humor or emotion. I want to make people laugh. I want to make people cry. And I want to make people think. So I try to, all that goes into the framework of, but no, I do this for a living.
Sure.
But for anyone listening, I still think the framework of an icebreaker, letting people know what you're going to talk about, delivering on that, and giving them takeaways is critical.
No, I think you could apply this to anything, a business lecture. You could apply it to a meeting and anything. Last quick follow-up question before that. And I think a lot of people think about this. A lot of people have stage fright. Maybe you never had it. I don't know if you did or didn't. If you did, how did you get over it, or how would you coach people to get over it?
Well, I think being nervous is okay. And I think that it shows that, it matters to you. I still get that, but it goes away. You know when it goes away? When you're confident. When you feel prepared, it goes away. Then then it shifts to enthusiasm to deliver what you're excited to deliver. Obviously it comes with reps, and reps could be even in front of, when I started speaking, I took 3 people in my office and said, I need you for 45 minutes. I want you to critique this and tell me, and I filmed it. And I want you to tell me what you like, where can I make it better? Do I lose you? Is it punchy? It's an art form, man. And you can't, again, like Lauren said, pro athletes don't just show up. They get reps, they practice, so I asked these 3 people and then I went back, is this better? I looked at myself on tape. When I give a new speech now, I still film myself and then watch the whole thing. I didn't like this, it's dragging. How do I make it 10% better? This shit matters, man. How do I make it better? How can I make this better? Am I losing anybody? So I'm really diving into it. And yeah.
Very Arnold Schwarzenegger. He does that too. He's obviously incredibly successful. He watches himself speak. And I think that's such a great tip because you can actually see yourself from a different perspective.
And the other thing that's important is some people will go through it in their head. You're not doing it in your head when you're on stage. You're talking. You talk faster in your head. So I time it. And then I like to hold, I don't use a head thing. Are you using a handheld mic? Or are you using what's it called? A lavalier or one of those things on your, what are you using? Because if you're not holding something, if you're holding something in your hand, well, then you have a free hand, but you only have one free hand because your mic's up. So you have to practice that. If you have 2 free hands, that's weird. So you have to practice what you're using. I only use handhelds only. And then when you practice speaking, even for a presentation, you want to look around the room when you go through your rehearsal or whatever. You're not looking in a mirror because then you're looking at yourself. You're not looking at yourself on stage. You're looking at the audience and you're not looking at your mannerisms. So I practice, in front of a room of nothing, like I'm projecting out to thousands of people. And then the last thing I would say that's a tip for me is when I go into and this is you guys do the same thing, I don't know. But when I'm going on to speak in front of a crowd, let's say a big crowd, I'll look at the stage. So I'll go to the back of the room or the side of the room and I'll look at the stage. And then I will, in my mind's eye, see myself on the stage looking out. So I know the size of the stage. I know the audience. I have a visual of what it's going to feel. I'm visualizing what it's going to feel like to project out to the audience from the angle of me on the stage. That's different, very different than just walking on there for the first time. I've already been out there in my mind's eye. You understand what I'm saying?
No. And listen, the reason I felt compelled to ask you this is I think a lot of people will see someone like yourself speak and they'll think, wow, this is just natural ability, which I'm sure there is some natural ability. But again, we've interviewed a lot of people, and what I always say is like, none of this stuff happens by accident. And to hear you talk about all of the different ways that you prep and to think about this, I think it's going to trigger something in people's mind, like, oh, this isn't just like some guy that rolled out of a van at a speaking event and then just showed up and wung it. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of prep and a lot of
and
care.
I study it.
Mm-hmm.
I watch TED Talks. Like I said, I've been to, I don't know, maybe I gave 50 speeches this year. I'm usually the only one on the roster that's in the back row watching the other people.
I will attest that you did that.
Yeah.
I saw you do it.
Yeah, when we were there,
Yeah, no, I'm not making
I
it
saw
up.
you do it.
No, I saw you do it.
Yeah.
No.
And it's not like
I'm gonna steal a lot of the stuff you just said. I'm gonna listen back to this clip. I really
hope
am.
you
I already
do.
wrote
Like,
it down, the framework.
And by the way, like I'm rooting for everybody. I'll share anything. I feel like I won the lottery. I have nothing to hide. Like there's no trade secrets. There are several people in the speaking circuit, high level, that I've written their TED Talks for. I'm not going to mention them. I've written their TED Talks, and then there's people that are competitive with me on the speaking circuit who I've gone over to and said, I have a suggestion. I think you should do it this way. I couldn't care less. I'm not like, I'm competing with me.
Well, again, because you're speaking from experiences that only happen to you. So it doesn't, they can't compete with that
I
anyway.
hope you guys crush it. Like, what do I care?
Jesse, I feel like we could talk to you all
Come back
day.
anytime. Honestly, open invite on the podcast. I could have asked you 600 more questions. You have a calendar company called Big Ass Calendar.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
guys made me one in baby pink. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's going to sit in my office. I'm going to send you guys, you and Taylor, a picture of my calendar that's filled up with all the trips that Michael Bostic's planned. I'm going to make him do the work. I'll put the Post-its on though. And I'm going to send you a picture. I'm so excited to use this in my own life. I've never actually looked at my entire life from a year view, and to be able to go back and look at it every single year is something I'd want to show my kids, and it's inspiring. I think it's such a great idea. So you guys made one in baby pink for me, and I asked you before this if we could do one for our audience in baby pink. So it's on the site. You guys can go shop jesseitzler.com/skinny.
That's amazing.
So go shop the pink calendar. It's the Big Ass Calendar. You guys can all get your own in pink. It's so pretty. They also have it in blue though too.
Yeah. And what's great about it is it's all 365 days of the year on one page. So you can track towards goals, and you can put, it's super visual, and humans are visual. So for me, it's like the number one planning tool that I have.
I think what I'll do is I'll like put all my Post-its on it, and then I'll try to show you guys how I've used mine in my office. I also want to just say that I noticed that the one that you brought of yours is sort of beat up, which tells me that you're not precious about it. You bring it around. It's not like sitting on a wall. Is that right?
Yeah, it does sit on my wall, but it travels with me too.
Okay, so you're looking at it. all
I'm
the
unique
time.
in that.
No, I like
way,
that.
but yeah,
I like that. I'm obsessed with that. Where can everyone find you? Where can everyone find what you're doing? Pimp yourself out, Jesse, and come back anytime.
First of all, thank you guys. And this year, I hope you go on a trip with me, Michael. Well,
Do
like
it.
one of these mini adventures. We should have the same date on our calendar for something.
I gotta work up to your level. I gotta get that endurance up.
No, man, I saw your sauna game. I think it might be the reverse. No, I'm just on all the socials at Jesse Itzler and jesseitzler.com. Pretty simple.
Love it. Thank
you
you
for doing this,
so
man.
Thank you,
much for
guys.
coming on. I love
Today
this
was fun.
episode.
It was
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, I loved it, man. Thank you.